Hello, listeners. Welcome to Stories Philippines podcast, where I, Alex, your host, dive into the eeriest tales from the beautiful islands of the Philippines. Today's episode is especially chilling as we explore some of the most haunted houses scattered across the archipelago. These locations, though their names have been changed to protect privacy, are steeped in history and packed with paranormal activity. So turn off the lights, get cozy, and prepare yourself for a journey into the world of ghouls, spirits, and things that go bump in the night. Before we dive in, let's set the stage with a few questions to ponder. Have you ever felt an inexplicable chill while walking past an old house? Or have you heard soft, almost inaudible whispers when you're supposed to be alone? What about that cold, prickly feeling of being watched? As humans, we are naturally curious about the unknown, and it is this curiosity that takes us to some of the darkest places in history and the most haunted locations in the present. Today we will explore these ghost stories one by one, each more spine-chilling than the last. The Laperal White House, Baguio. We begin our journey in the cool climes of Baguio, where the Laperal White House awaits. Located on Leonard Wood Road, this Victorian-style mansion built by the Laperal family quickly became known for its ghostly inhabitants. Like many haunted houses, the Laperal White House served as a base for Japanese soldiers during World War II. The atrocities committed within its walls have left a permanent scar, with many spirits trapped in eternal torment. Today, the house serves as a bamboo carving museum, but the paranormal activity continues. Stories from caretakers and visitors tell of lights flickering, footsteps echoing through empty halls, and sudden cold breezes. The most famous apparition is that of a white lady, often seen standing on the third step of the main staircase, gazing blankly into the distance. An insightful comment here might be to consider how traumatic historical events leave imprints on physical locations. The Philippine-American War and World War II left deep psychological scars on the people and places involved. The Laperal White House, being a site where Japanese soldiers allegedly tortured and killed numerous individuals, carries a heavy atmosphere of sorrow and pain. These emotions, some believe, could manifest as paranormal phenomena. The Red House, San Ildefonso, Bulacan. Our journey continues to San Ildefonso, Bulacan, where the infamous Red House stands. This house, with its blood-red exterior, has a dark past. Built in the 1920s, it was used as a barracks by Japanese soldiers during World War II and a holding site for comfort women. Many of these women were subjected to horrific abuse, and their spirits are said to haunt the house to this day. In 2014, parts of the house were dismantled, but the remaining structure still stands as a chilling reminder of its history. Visitors and locals report violent spirits, sudden cold spots, and disembodied screams. The house's grim history has earned it the title of one of Bulacan's most haunted locations. What's particularly fascinating is how the name Red House could be symbolic. Beyond its literal red paint, it might represent the bloodshed and emotional trauma experienced there. The history of comfort women during World War II is a painful chapter, and places like the Red House serve as stark reminders of the atrocities committed. The Herrera Mansion, Lucban, Quezon. Next, we travel to Lucban, Quezon. Nestled in this quaint town is the Herrera Mansion, a majestic yet eerie old white painted house. Built by a famous architect, the mansion is surrounded by tall grasses and an antique gate with pointed grills. At the entrance stands a statue depicting Elias from Noli Me Tangere, wrestling a crocodile, adding to the mansion's mysterious aura. The Herrera Mansion, considered the oldest house in Lucban, has a storied history. It survived World War II, during which it was bombed and partially destroyed, only to be rebuilt later. People living near the mansion have reported seeing headless Japanese soldiers, figures in old-fashioned clothing, and an elderly couple wandering the grounds. The most unsettling reports involve the sound of rattling doorknobs and chains dragging across the floors at night. Interestingly, it's worth noting how the mansion's aesthetic elements, like the statue of Elias, add to its mysterious and almost foreboding aura. Jose Rizal's Noli Me Tangere is a cornerstone of Philippine literature, dealing heavily with social injustices. The choice to immortalize Elias, a tragic hero, juxtaposed against the mansion's eerie atmosphere, creates a palpable sense of unresolved tension and sorrow. The Haunted Mansion on Escario Street, Cebu. Our next stop is in the bustling city of Cebu, known for its rich history and vibrant culture. However, Cebu also harbors a darker side, especially on Escario Street. Here lies the Escario Pension House, a 4-story building recently converted into a hotel. While under construction, the workers experienced a series of unexplained and tragic events. Every 3 months, a worker would mysteriously die. These deaths were often unexplained, leaving many to believe that the land on which the pension house was built was cursed. As the building neared completion, whispers of ghost sightings began to circulate. Guests staying at the pension house have reported various paranormal activities. Footsteps echoing in empty hallways, cold spots, and sudden drops in temperature are common occurrences. The most chilling of all are the apparitions. A shadowy figure, believed to be one of the unfortunate construction workers, is said to roam the halls at night. Despite these supernatural occurrences, the pension house remains operational. Would you dare spend a night there? Interestingly, historical records show that the area might have been part of an old burial ground. This could explain the unrest of the spirits. Malacanang Palace, Manila. Our final stop is perhaps the most famous haunted location in the Philippines, Malacanang Palace in Manila. As the official residence of the President of the Philippines, one would expect grandeur, not ghosts. However, Malacanang is reputed to be the country's most haunted house, with numerous accounts of paranormal activity. Former residents and staff have reported seeing the spirits of past presidents like Manuel L. Quezon, Sergio Osmeña, and Manuel Roxas. These spectral figures are often spotted in the state dining room, seemingly engaged in deep conversation or simply roaming the halls. Other supernatural occurrences include unexplained footsteps, flickering lights, and a mysterious piano playing by itself. One chilling story involves the ghost of a headless priest said to roam the palace grounds. This apparition has startled many a guard and visitor, adding to the palace's eerie reputation. Commenting on the nature of haunted places of power, it's fascinating how places like Malacanang Palace, which are seats of authority and decision-making, also harbor such rich tales of the supernatural. Could it be that the intense energies and emotions experienced in these halls make them more susceptible to paranormal phenomena? In delving deeper into the stories and legends surrounding these haunted locations, it's crucial to understand that these are not just isolated incidents, but part of a broader tapestry of supernatural occurrences that span the country. The Philippines, with its rich history marked by periods of colonization, war, and cultural amalgamation, provides a fertile ground for ghost stories and haunted locations. One of the common threads running through these haunted places is their historical significance. For instance, many of these structures were built during or just after significant periods of upheaval, such as the Spanish colonization and World War II. The atrocities and suffering that took place during these times often left lasting impressions on the locations where they occurred. Another layer to consider is the role of Filipino folklore and cultural beliefs in shaping these ghost stories. The Philippines has a rich tradition of folklore, with tales of elemental spirits, mythical creatures, and ancestral ghosts. These beliefs often intersect with Catholicism, resulting in a unique blend of supernatural lore. For example, the concept of the White Lady is prevalent in many Filipino ghost stories, including those of the Laprol White House and Malacanang Palace. This archetype, often a spirit seeking justice or mourning a tragic event, can be traced back to both pre-colonial and Spanish colonial influences. Moreover, the belief in ancestral spirits and the importance of respecting these entities is deeply ingrained in Filipino culture. This respect extends to haunted locations, where offerings and rituals are performed to appease restless spirits. To further understand the haunted nature of these locations, let's delve into some historical accounts that may have contributed to their eerie reputations. The Laprol White House's haunting is often attributed to its use by Japanese soldiers during World War II. Baguio was a strategic location during the war, and many houses, including the Laprol Mansion, were commandeered by the Japanese. The brutal treatment of prisoners and residents during this time has left a dark legacy. Historical records indicate that torture and executions were common, contributing to the house's reputation as a hotbed of paranormal activity. Similarly, the Red House in San Ildefonso, Bulacan, serves as a stark reminder of the comfort women's plight during World War II. Historical documentation and survivor accounts detail the horrific experiences of these women, who were forced into sexual slavery by the Japanese military. The trauma and pain endured within the walls of the Red House have left an indelible mark, manifesting as violent spirits and unsettling phenomena. Malacanang Palace's haunted reputation can be linked to its long and storied history. Built in the mid-18th century, the palace has witnessed the rise and fall of numerous administrations, each bringing its share of political intrigue and emotional intensity. The deaths of prominent figures, such as the assassination of General Antonio Luna and the death of President Manuel L. Quezon, add layers to the palace's haunted narrative. The Herrera Mansion in Lucban, Quezon, likewise has its share of historical scars. Damaged during World War II, the mansion served as a refuge and later a battleground. The presence of headless Japanese soldiers, as reported by locals, ties into the broader history of wartime atrocities and the brutal treatment of prisoners and soldiers alike. While historical context provides a foundation, the personal accounts of those who have experienced these hauntings add depth and authenticity to the stories. Visitors to the Laprol White House often recount feelings of unease and inexplicable cold spots. One visitor shared an experience of seeing a shadowy figure at the top of the staircase, which vanished upon closer inspection. Another account involves a group of friends who toured the house and felt an overwhelming sense of sadness near the fireplace, where they later learned prisoners were once tortured. The Red House's reputation for violent spirits is supported by numerous personal accounts. A local resident reported hearing disembodied screams and seeing shadowy figures moving through the house at night. Another chilling story involves a group of paranormal investigators who ventured into the house and captured EVP electronic voice phenomena recordings of voices pleading for help. In Lucban, the Herrera Mansion's hauntings are well known among locals. A resident recounted seeing the apparition of a headless soldier walking through the grounds at dusk. Another story involves an elderly couple who appear and disappear near the mansion's entrance, seemingly locked in a perpetual state of mourning. Guests at the Escario Mansion in Cebu have shared spine-tingling experiences of seeing shadowy figures and feeling sudden drops in temperature. One particularly unsettling account involves a guest who woke up in the middle of the night to find a figure standing at the foot of the bed, only to disappear when the lights were turned on. The guest later learned that their room was situated near where one of the construction workers had died. Malacanang Palace's haunted reputation is bolstered by numerous accounts from former residents and staff. One guard shared an experience of hearing footsteps and seeing a man in period clothing walking through the hall, only to vanish into thin air. Another story involves a staff member who heard a piano playing in the middle of the night, despite the room being empty. What's particularly fascinating about these personal accounts is the consistency in the types of phenomena reported. Apparitions, cold spots, disembodied voices, and feelings of unease are common across all these locations. This raises intriguing questions about the nature of hauntings. Are these manifestations of residual energy, replaying traumatic events like a broken record, or are they intelligent entities attempting to communicate with the living? In recent years, modern paranormal investigations have added a new dimension to the study of haunted locations. Equipped with advanced technology, investigators aim to capture and document evidence of the supernatural. EMF electromagnetic field detectors, infrared cameras, EVP recorders, and thermal imaging are commonly used tools. A team of paranormal investigators conducted an overnight investigation at the Laprel White House. Using infrared cameras, they captured unexplained orbs of light moving through the rooms. EVP sessions yielded chilling results, with voices responding to questions in both Tagalog and English. One investigator felt a hand on their shoulder, despite being alone in the room. In the Red House, an investigation team reported high EMF readings in areas where comfort women were held. Infrared footage captured shadowy figures moving through the house, and thermal imaging detected cold spots near the main entrance. An EVP session recorded a voice saying, "Talungan niyo ako, help me," adding to the house's grim reputation. While formal investigations are limited due to the palace's security, anecdotal accounts from security personnel provide valuable insights. One guard shared a story of seeing lights flicker in an empty corridor, followed by a sudden drop in temperature. Another reported hearing whispers and feeling a presence while patrolling the grounds at night. It's important to consider the psychological impact of haunted places on both visitors and residents. The power of suggestion, combined with historical knowledge and personal beliefs, can amplify fear and heighten the perception of paranormal activity. Before we dive into these spine-chilling stories, take a moment to ask yourself, why do schools seem to attract the paranormal? Why do ghosts often appear as children? Is it possible that some places actually hold the memories of past events, manifesting them in eerie and unexplainable ways? I am Alex, and you are listening to Stories Philippines Podcast. A normal school day, or so it seemed. Imagine you're a student at St. Mary's School in the picturesque town of San Rafael, Batangas. It's just another regular school day, filled with the usual hustle and bustle of student life. The sun is shining, and the laughter of children fills the air. You are in the middle of a math class, focusing on a challenging problem on the board, when suddenly the power goes out. The entire school is plunged into darkness. The only sources of light are the dim emergency lights that flicker on, casting eerie shadows on the walls. As your eyes adjust to the dim lighting, you notice something strange. Standing at the end of the hallway is a young girl. At first glance, you think she's a fellow student who got lost in the confusion. But then you notice her dress a bright yellow and blue ensemble that looks oddly out of place. It's not a uniform, not even close to what any student at St. Mary's would wear. Curiosity piqued, you take a step closer to get a better look. But before you can reach her, she disappears around the corner, as if vanishing into thin air. You blink in disbelief, wondering if your eyes are playing tricks on you. Later that day, during lunch, you overhear a classmate describing the same girl in the same dress. Creeped out, you dismiss it as a coincidence until more students start sharing similar stories. Each account is eerily consistent, down to the smallest detail. And you begin to wonder, could it really be just your imagination? The phenomenon of seeing a ghostly figure that multiple people can describe in detail is known as a collective apparition. Such occurrences add credibility to the paranormal experience, as it's harder to dismiss the sighting as a hallucination or dream when others have seen the same thing. As if the sighting of the mysterious girl weren't eerie enough, St. Mary's School has another unsettling legend. Teachers and students alike have reported seeing a figure they describe as a burnt child. This story dates back several years and has become a chilling part of the school's folklore. One evening, Miss Reyes, a dedicated teacher who often stayed late to grade papers, was alone in her classroom. The school was eerily quiet, the only sounds being the rustle of paper and the occasional creak of the old building. As she flipped through a stack of essays, she heard a rustling sound under her desk. Curiosity and fear mixed in her chest as she bent down to look. There, hiding in the shadows, was a child with scorched skin, eyes full of pain and sorrow. The sight was so unsettling that Miss Ray screamed, her voice echoing through the empty hallways. When help arrived, the child had vanished without a trace. Word of Miss Reyes' encounter spread like wildfire, heightening the fear and curiosity among students and staff. Everyone started avoiding staying late, and those who did always made sure they were never alone. The presence of the burnt child seemed to tap into everyone's deepest fears, making St. Mary's School a place where the ordinary became extraordinarily terrifying. The idea of a burnt child as a ghost could have historical roots. There have been tragic events such as fires that have claimed many lives, leaving behind stories of restless spirits. For instance, the Great Chicago Fire of 1871 led to numerous tales of haunted places where victims of the fire supposedly appear. Such stories often reflect the deep scars left by tragic events on the collective psyche of a community. A month later, another inexplicable event added to the school's growing list of paranormal occurrences. One sunny afternoon, Miss Santos, a history teacher, was preparing for her next class. She had just finished setting up classroom 3A and stepped out for a moment to grab some materials from the teacher's lounge. Upon her return, she found the door inexplicably locked. This in itself wasn't strange, except for the fact that she had just left the room moments before and it had been empty. No one had a key except the janitor, who was nowhere to be found. Puzzled and slightly unnerved, Miss Santos sought help from the principal. Together, they managed to unlock the door. Upon entering, they found the room exactly as she had left it, with nothing seemingly out of place. However, from that day on, Classroom 3 gained a notorious reputation. It became known as the mischievous classroom, with students and teachers alike reporting mysterious cold drafts and the unexplained movement of objects. One student claimed that his desk was in a different position when he arrived in the morning, and another reported hearing a faint whispering voice during a silent reading session. These incidents became so frequent that some students refused to enter the room, even in broad daylight. Locked rooms and mysterious goings-on are staples of ghost stories worldwide. They tap into our fear of the unknown and the unseen. This narrative device is effective because it builds suspense and fear of what cannot be easily explained or seen. The story of St. Mary's School brings to mind another haunting tale from St. Agnes Academy, an all-girls school situated in the heart of Bacolod City. This story has been passed down through generations, becoming a part of the school's folklore. Years ago, a girl named Clara was found hanged in one of the bathroom stalls. Her death was ruled a suicide, but the circumstances were suspicious. Since then, students have reported hearing whispers and seeing Clara's ghostly figure wandering the hallways, especially near the bathrooms. The detail of finding her in a bathroom stall adds a chilling layer to the story, making it all too real for those who hear it. Clara's story has stuck with the students and faculty, making St. Agnes Academy a place where the past and present seem to coexist in eerie harmony. Some students claim to have seen her reflection in mirrors, while others reported feeling an unexplainable coldness when passing by the bathroom where she was found. These eerie encounters have turned the bathroom into a place of legend, with many students avoiding it altogether. Similar to the story of Clara, many schools around the world have their own legends of tragic events. For example, the story of the haunted hallways at El Paso High School, where a cheerleader allegedly committed suicide, leaving her spirit to wander the school. These stories often serve as cautionary tales, reflecting broader societal issues such as mental health and bullying. Before we dive in, I'd love for you to follow our podcast and share it with friends, family, and colleagues who crave thrilling tales. Our episodes are packed with suspense and excitement that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Sharing our podcast not only helps us grow, but also spreads the joy of storytelling to others who enjoy a good thrill. Whether it's during a commute, a workout, or just winding down at home, our stories are the perfect companion. And hey, if you or anyone you know has an amazing story to share, we'd love to hear from you. Your personal experiences and unique tales add so much to our community. You can reach out to us through the links in the show notes. We can't wait to hear from you and possibly feature your story in an upcoming episode. Thank you for being a part of our storytelling journey. But the tales of haunted schools don't end at St. Mary's and St. Agnes. Over at the student organization HQ in Manila, another grim story unfolds. This dimly lit, mostly empty building is the perfect setting for a ghost story. One night, a student named Miguel was alone in the HQ, finishing up some work. The building was silent except for the occasional creak and groan of its aged structure. As Miguel was packing up to leave, he noticed a shadowy figure at the end of the hallway. At first, he thought it was another student, but as he looked closer, he realized the figure's back was bending the wrong way, contorted in an unnatural position. Paralyzed with fear, he watched as the figure slowly disappeared into the darkness. The next day, Miguel reported the incident, and soon, other students came forward with similar experiences. Some reported seeing shadowy figures lurking in the corners of their vision, while others heard faint, disembodied voices echoing through the halls. Equipment was found moved from its original place, and cryptic markings started appearing on the walls. It was as if some unseen force was trying to communicate with them, or worse, torment them. The bending back figure is a disturbing visual, reminiscent of horror movie tropes like the contorted movements seen in The Exorcist or Japanese horror films like Ju-on the Grudge. These visual elements are effective in evoking fear because they present human forms in utterly inhuman ways, triggering our deepest discomforts. And then there are the children. Children often appear in these stories, adding an extra layer of eeriness. One listener, Maria from Davao City, shared her own spine-chilling encounter. One rainy night, she was alone in her room, studying for an upcoming exam. The rain pattered softly against the window, creating a soothing rhythm that helped her concentrate. Suddenly, she felt a chill run down her spine, as if someone were watching her. Turning towards the window, she saw a child standing outside. The dim light from a nearby street lamp illuminated the child's face, revealing a horrifying sight. This child had no eyebrows. The sight was so unsettling that Maria couldn't sleep for days. She kept wondering why a child would be wandering outside at night and why it had no eyebrows. The little details, like the missing eyebrows, made the encounter all the more disturbing and believable. She later learned that other neighbors had seen the same child, adding to the mystery and fear that gripped her neighborhood. Children in ghost stories often represent lost innocence or unresolved trauma. The lack of eyebrows provides a subtle but deeply unsettling image. Such specific details make stories more personal and thus more frightening. So what do we make of all these stories? For one, schools seem to be a hotspot for paranormal activity. Maybe it's because schools hold so many memories, both good and bad. They absorb all that energy over the years, becoming a container for all those experiences, even long after everyone has left. And it's not just schools. Children keep popping up in these stories. Maybe it's because children are more open to the supernatural, more imaginative. Another interesting point is that many of these stories are told by different people, sometimes even years apart. It's like they're experiencing the same things at different times, making you wonder if there's something more to these tales than just stories. When multiple people have similar experiences, it makes you question whether there's actually something there. Maybe those places really are haunted, but how do we begin to understand this? One possibility is the power of suggestion. If you hear a place is haunted, you might start to see or hear things that aren't really there. Urban legends and cultural beliefs play a huge role too. Every culture has stories about the supernatural shaping how we see the world and making us more likely to interpret things in a certain way. The power of suggestion is a compelling explanation for many paranormal experiences. This phenomenon is well documented in psychology. If people expect to see something, they are more likely to perceive it, even if it isn't there. This serves as a reminder of how powerful our minds can be in shaping our perceptions. Another thing to consider is whether some places are just naturally more prone to paranormal activity. Maybe because of their history, or maybe something happened there that left some kind of energy behind. Places where something tragic occurred are often said to be haunted. While there's no real proof, some people think strong emotions, especially negative ones, can linger in a place almost like they seep into the walls. This brings us back to the spider babies phenomenon. Grace mentioned getting a ton of similar stories out of nowhere, all about spider babies. Yes, spider babies. It wasn't just one or two people, it was like everyone was suddenly seeing them. So weird, right? These stories remind us that there's still so much we don't understand. What if these stories are more than just tales? What if there's actually something else going on? It's a little scary to think about, but also kind of exciting. Historical records and folklore often contain elements of the supernatural, revealing how past societies tried to make sense of the unexplainable. Whether it's a haunting that persists through generations or sudden spikes in similar paranormal reports, these stories can offer fascinating insights into human psychology and cultural history. Have you ever felt the presence of someone when you were completely alone? Or perhaps you've had a premonition that came true? Welcome back, listeners, to another spine-chilling episode of Stories Philippines podcast, where we delve into the eerie and unsettling tales sent in by you, our listeners. I'm Alex, your host, and today we've got a collection of stories that will make you question the very fabric of reality and the blurred lines between the living and the otherworldly. Remember, all names and places in our stories have been changed to protect the privacy of those involved. Our first story comes from a listener in Lucena City who shared an experience about their aunt, who possessed an uncanny sixth sense. This aunt, whom we'll call Tita Marga, had a series of premonitions throughout her life. It was as if she had a direct line to the other side, sensing things before they happened. One of her most haunting premonitions involved her own brother, whom we'll name Tito Luis. Tita Marga had always been close to her brother Tito Luis. They grew up inseparable, supporting each other through thick and thin. One night, Tita Marga awoke in a cold sweat. She had dreamt of Tito Luis standing at the edge of a cliff, looking despondent and lost. The dream was so vivid that she could see every detail: the rustling leaves, the distant sound of the ocean waves crashing against the rocks, and the pale moon casting an eerie glow over the scene. The next morning, Tita Marga couldn't shake off the feeling of dread. She called Tito Luis to check on him, but there was no answer. Hours turned into days, and still, there was no word from Tito Luis. Then, on the third day, the police came with the devastating news. Tito Luis had been found at the bottom of a cliff, the very same one from Tita Marga's dream. Isn't it intriguing how some people can feel an impending doom, almost as if they're tuned into a different frequency? The family was shattered, but Tita Marga was inconsolable. She felt a heavy burden of guilt, believing that she should have done something to prevent the tragedy. Over time, the family came to see Tita Marga's premonition as both a gift and a curse. It made them wonder whether some people are more attuned to the spiritual realm and if such insights could ever change the course of fate. The concept of having a sixth sense or premonitions isn't unique to the Philippines. Throughout history, many cultures have tales of individuals who possess extraordinary abilities to foresee events. In ancient Rome, for example, augurs or soothsayers were believed to interpret the will of the gods by studying the flight patterns of birds and other omens. Similarly, in ancient China, oracles and diviners used various methods, such as I Ching Book of Changes, to predict the future. It makes you think, doesn't it? Are these abilities real, or are they merely coincidences that we attribute to the supernatural? Moving on, we delve into another classic setting for ghost stories: schools. One listener from Angano shared a series of eerie encounters at their school, aptly named Angano Integrated School. One incident stood out among the rest, involving a mysterious photo taken inside a classroom. It was early morning, around 5 a.m., when a group of students decided to meet at the school to finish a project. The school was eerily quiet, with only the faint hum of the air conditioning system breaking the silence. One student, let's call him Carlo, had brought along an old digital camera to document the project. Carlo was an early riser and often carried his camera everywhere, hoping to capture candid moments of his friends. As they set up their materials in their homeroom, Carlo snapped a few pictures of the empty room, intending to create a before and after montage of their project. It wasn't until he reviewed the photos later that he noticed something peculiar. In one shot taken near the lockers, there were two faint figures that seemed to be children, pressing against the lockers as if trying to peer inside them. It's like these spirits are captured in a moment they're forever trying to relive. Carlo showed the photo to his friends, and a chill ran down their spines. They had been the only ones in the room at that time, and the figures were not visible to the naked eye when the photo was taken. The word of the photo spread quickly through the school, and soon, everyone was talking about the locker ghost. Students began to avoid the locker area, claiming they felt an unnerving presence whenever they walked by. Some even reported hearing the sound of faint giggles and whispers when no one else was around. The school administration tried to dismiss the claims as mass hysteria, but the students knew better. The fear was palpable, and everyone could feel that something was deeply wrong with that area. Despite the administration's attempts to quell the rumors, students continued to report strange sightings and feelings, cementing the locker area's reputation as the school's most haunted spot. Schools, especially older ones, often have a history of emotional events, happy, sad, and even tragic. It's believed that these intense emotions can leave a lingering energy in a place, which some people refer to as residual hauntings. In fact, there's a famous theory called the stone tape theory, which suggests that emotions and events can be recorded into the environment and replayed under certain conditions. Could it be that these locker ghosts are an example of this theory in action? Another listener from Vegan shared their experience with a haunted bathroom stall in their all-girls school, Vegan Girls Academy. Bathrooms have always been a hotspot for ghost stories, and this one is no exception. The listener, whom we'll call Anna, recalled the day she had an unsettling encounter in the school's oldest bathroom. Anna had always heard rumors about the eerie bathroom on the second floor, where the older students whispered about a tragic event that happened years ago. According to the legend, a nun had committed suicide in one of the stalls after suffering a mental breakdown. Anna, however, was skeptical and never really gave much thought to the stories. One day, after a particularly grueling exam, Anna decided to use the bathroom to freshen up before heading home. As she stood at the sink, washing her hands, she suddenly felt a cold breeze brush past her neck. She glanced around but saw no open windows or vents that could have caused the draft. Shaking off the unease, she continued washing her hands. Then, out of nowhere, she felt a sharp tug on her hair. It was as if someone had grabbed 2 fistfuls of her hair and yanked it with all their might. Anna let out a yelp and spun around, but the bathroom was empty. Her heart raced as she hurriedly gathered her belongings and ran out. She didn't look back. Anna later confided in a close friend about her experience, expecting skepticism or ridicule. Instead, her friend's face went pale. She revealed that she too had experienced something similar in that very same bathroom. Together, they did some digging and discovered that a student had indeed committed suicide in that stall many years ago. The revelation left them both shaken, and they vowed never to use that bathroom again. Isn't it fascinating how places can hold onto the energy of past events, especially tragic ones? This idea isn't exclusive to the Philippines. For instance, the infamous Amityville Horror House in the United States has been the subject of numerous books and films, all revolving around the idea that a house can hold on to the traumatic events that occurred within its walls. Similarly, in Japan, the Aokigahara Forest, often referred to as the Suicide Forest, is believed to be haunted by the spirits of those who took their own lives there. Do you think these places are genuinely haunted, or could it be that our own fears and imaginations give life to these spirits? Next, we have a story from a listener in Bacolod City who recounted a chilling encounter in their school's science lab. The listener, whom we'll call Miguel, had always been fascinated by the paranormal, but he never expected to experience something so unsettling firsthand. One evening, Miguel stayed late at school to finish a science project. The halls were deserted, and the only light came from the dim glow of the emergency lights. As he worked, he saw a figure standing by the lab's window out of the corner of his eye. Initially, Miguel thought it was another student, perhaps someone who had also stayed late to study. Miguel called out, "Hey, you're going to get in trouble if you stay here too late," but there was no response. The figure remained motionless, staring out the window. Miguel felt a chill run down his spine as he realized that something was off. He called out again, louder this time, but still, the figure didn't move. Summoning his courage, Miguel approached the window. As he got closer, he noticed that the figure was slightly transparent, and he could see the outlines of the trees outside through it. His heart pounded as he reached out to touch the figure, but his hand passed right through it. Imagine the sheer terror of realizing that what you thought was a person was actually a ghost. Miguel stumbled back, his mind racing. He grabbed his belongings and ran out of the lab, not stopping until he was safely outside the school gates. The next day, he shared his experience with his friends, but most of them were skeptical. However, a few believed him, and they too had heard stories about the lab being haunted. It turned out that years ago, a student had died in a tragic accident involving chemicals in that very same lab. Miguel's encounter added to the lore surrounding the school, and the science lab became another place that students avoided as much as possible. It's interesting to note that many ghost stories involve tragic deaths, especially in young people. This brings to mind the famous case of the Winchester Mystery House in California. Sarah Winchester, the widow of the inventor of the Winchester rifle, believed she was haunted by the spirits of those killed by her husband's invention. She built an elaborate, maze-like mansion to confuse the spirits, but many believe that the restless spirits are still trapped within the house's walls. Could it be that spirits are drawn to places of tragedy, forever trying to find peace? Or perhaps they are trapped, unable to move on from the scene of their demise. Some believe that spirits might linger in places where they felt strong emotions, whether it be joy, sorrow, or fear. Before we jump into the next story, I'd like to invite you to follow Stories Philippines podcast and share it with friends, family, and colleagues who are always looking for thrilling tales. Our episodes are full of suspense and excitement, sure to keep you on the edge of your seat. Sharing our podcast helps us grow and spreads the joy of storytelling to others who love a good thrill. Whether you're commuting, working out, or just relaxing at home, our stories make the perfect companion. Plus, if you or someone you know has a great story to share, we'd love to hear from you. Personal experiences and unique tales add so much to our community. You can reach us through the links in the show notes. We can't wait to hear from you and possibly feature your story in an upcoming episode. Thanks for being part of our storytelling journey. Now, let's get back to the show. Our next story is from a listener in Dumaguete who shared an eerie experience involving their father's missing phone. The listener, whom we'll call Biya, had recently lost her father, and the family was still in the throes of grief when strange things started happening. Biya's father was a meticulous man, and he always kept his phone by his side. After his passing, the family couldn't find his phone anywhere. They searched the house from top to bottom, but to no avail. It was as if the phone had vanished into thin air. A few weeks later, Biya received a call from an unknown number. When she answered, there was only static on the other end. She dismissed it as a prank call and didn't think much of it. However, the calls continued, each time from a different unknown number, and each time there was only static or faint, unintelligible whispers. One night, Biya decided to answer the call and listen more closely. Amid the static, she heard a voice that sounded eerily like her father's, calling her name. Her blood ran cold, and she dropped the phone in shock. She tried to rationalize the experience, telling herself that it was just her mind playing tricks on her, a manifestation of her grief and longing for her father. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that it was truly him. The calls persisted, and Bia's anxiety grew. She confided in her mother, who suggested they visit a local priest for guidance. The priest, Father Eduardo, listened to their story and agreed to bless their home. During the blessing, Father Eduardo sensed a lingering presence and performed a ritual to cleanse the house of any negative energy. He explained that sometimes, spirits can get attached to objects or places familiar to them, and they might need help moving on. After the ritual, the calls stopped, and Biya felt a sense of peace for the first time since her father's passing. She couldn't explain the calls or why they had happened, but she took comfort in the thought that maybe, just maybe, it was her father's way of reaching out to say goodbye. Imagine the comfort and the fear intertwined in receiving a call from a loved one who has passed away. This concept isn't new and has been explored in various cultures and media. For instance, in the Victorian era, spiritualism was a popular movement where mediums claimed to communicate with the dead. People desperately seeking closure would often attend seances to hear from their departed loved ones. Do you think technology could act as a bridge between the living and the dead, allowing for such otherworldly communications? Could our electronic devices hold onto fragments of our consciousness, even after we're gone? Or are these experiences simply glitches in the system, misinterpreted by our grieving minds? Our final story comes from multiple listeners across different cities in the Philippines, all sharing sightings of a mysterious figure, a boy with burned skin. This shared experience has been reported in various schools, houses, and public places, making it one of the most perplexing and unsettling stories we've encountered. One listener from Davao, whom we'll call Jenny, recounted her sighting of the burnt boy. Jenny was walking home from school one evening when she noticed a figure standing under a street lamp. As she got closer, she realized it was a young boy with severely burned skin, his face contorted in pain. Jenny felt a wave of sadness and fear wash over her. She wanted to help but was too scared to approach. The boy stared at her with hollow eyes, and Jenny felt as if he was looking right into her soul. She quickly walked past him, but when she glanced back, the boy was gone. Shaken, Jenny rushed home and told her parents about the encounter. Her parents were concerned but tried to reassure her that it was probably just her imagination playing tricks on her in the fading light. However, similar sightings were reported by other listeners in different parts of the country. A listener from Cebu shared a story about seeing the burnt boy in their school's library late at night, hiding amongst the bookshelves. Another listener from Baguio recounted an encounter with the boy at a local park, sitting alone on a swing set, swaying gently in the breeze. Each sighting had the same haunting details: a young boy with burned skin, staring with hollow eyes and disappearing without a trace. Could these sightings be connected to a common historical event? The consistency of these sightings led to speculation about the boy's identity. Some believed he was the spirit of a child who had died in a tragic fire, perhaps a victim of one of the many fires that have plagued the country throughout its history. Others thought he might be a manifestation of collective fear and trauma, a symbol of the pain and suffering that many Filipinos have endured. Whatever the case, the burnt boy remains an enigma, a haunting reminder of the unknown and the unresolved. It's worth noting that similar phenomena have been reported around the world. For instance, in England, there are tales of the black-eyed children, mysterious children with completely black eyes who appear on doorsteps and ask to be let inside. Like the burnt boy, these children are often associated with a deep sense of dread and fear. Do you think these sightings are a modern incarnation of ancient folklore, or could they be something more? Are these figures simply figments of our imagination, or do they represent something deeper, something that we cannot yet comprehend? As we come to the end of today's episode, I want to take a moment to reflect on the stories we've shared. These tales of the supernatural remind us that there are still many mysteries in the world that we may never fully understand. They challenge our perceptions of reality and make us question what lies beyond the veil of the everyday. They force us to confront the uncomfortable truth that we don't have all the answers, and that perhaps some things are simply beyond our comprehension. But more importantly, these stories highlight the deep connections we share with our loved ones, our communities, and our past. Whether it's the premonition of a loved one's death, the lingering presence of a tragic event, or the unexplainable encounters with the otherworldly, these experiences shape who we are and how we see the world. They remind us that we are all connected, not just to each other, but to something larger than ourselves. It's fascinating how these stories often involve a combination of fear and comfort. Fear of the unknown, but also comfort in the possibility that our loved ones may still be with us in some form. These dual emotions are what make ghost stories so compelling and universally relatable. They tap into our deepest fears and hopes, reminding us of our own mortality and the enduring power of love. So listeners, as you go about your day, remember to keep an open mind and a compassionate heart. Embrace the unknown, cherish your connections, and never stop exploring the spaces between belief and skepticism. Who knows what you might find lurking there? Perhaps you'll discover a deeper understanding of yourself, the world around you, and the mysteries that lie beyond. We invite you to share your own stories with us. Whether it's a personal experience or a tale passed down through generations, your stories are what make this podcast special. You can submit your stories through the link in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this episode and want to support us, please check out the show notes for ways you can contribute financially. Your support helps us continue to bring you these intriguing and thought-provoking episodes. Have you ever felt a cold breath on your neck when you were all alone? Or maybe you've heard a whisper of your name in an empty room, sending shivers down your spine. Tonight, we plunge into the heart of such chilling encounters, guided by the voices of those who dared to face the unknown. Welcome back to Stories Philippines podcast, where the supernatural meets the everyday. I'm your host, Alex, and tonight, we're not just telling ghost stories, we're unraveling the threads of Filipino folklore, history, and belief that weave these encounters into the fabric of our culture. But before we begin, let's consider something unique to our culture, the concept of pasma. Could this belief in the disruption of energy, brought on by sudden temperature changes, hold the key to understanding some of these eerie experiences? Could our ancestors' interpretations of the world around them offer a glimpse into the realm of the unseen? In the Philippines, we've always had a deep respect for the delicate balance between the hot and the cold, the seen and the unseen. Pasma, the belief that sudden shifts in temperature can disrupt our body's energy flow, leading to illness or misfortune, is a testament to this. Imagine washing your hands with cold water after ironing clothes could invite negative energy, a spiritual imbalance. This might seem like an old wives' tale to some, but think about it. It's a cultural lens through which we view the world, a way of explaining the inexplicable. Just like the evil eye in other cultures, pasma reminds us that our actions can have unseen consequences, echoing in the spiritual realm. Tonight we'll explore haunted hospitals where the echoes of suffering linger, schools where youthful energy intertwines with ancient spirits, and homes that harbor secrets within their walls. We'll delve into the historical context that might explain these hauntings, connecting the past to the present, the living to the departed. So gather close, listeners, and prepare to be chilled to the bone. Light a candle, say a prayer, and let's journey together into the shadows. Our first stop takes us to the hallowed halls of San Mateo General Hospital, a place where life and death dance in a delicate balance. Imagine the silence of the night shift, the sterile smell of antiseptic, the distant hum of medical equipment. It's in this setting that our first storyteller, a pharmacist, encountered the inexplicable. Every night, as the clock struck midnight, he would see them, a young child, no more than 6 or 7, standing at the end of a long, dimly lit corridor, and a shadowy figure lurking behind, always just out of focus. At first, he dismissed it as fatigue, the tricks that an overworked mind can play. But the sightings persisted, growing more vivid, more unsettling. The child, he said, seemed lost, with a look of sadness in his eyes. The shadowy figure, on the other hand, exuded a chilling presence, an ominous aura. It wasn't terror that he felt, he explained, but an overwhelming sense of dread, a cold wave washing over him. Hospitals, especially those with long histories, often become repositories of energy, of emotions. San Mateo General, built during the Spanish colonial era, has witnessed countless moments of pain, suffering, and loss. Could it be that these lingering emotions, these imprints of the past, manifest as ghostly apparitions? Our next story from San Mateo General comes from another pharmacist who experienced something even more unsettling. Night after night, he would hear footsteps ascending the stairwell, always leading to the office of a recently deceased senior staff member. He initially brushed it off, assuming it was a colleague working late. But the footsteps persisted, always at the same time, always with the same destination. Driven by curiosity and a growing sense of unease, he decided to investigate. But each time, the stairwell was empty, leaving him with only the echo of those phantom footsteps. Could this be a residual haunting, a ghostly replay of a familiar routine? Perhaps the spirit of the deceased staff member, so dedicated to their work, still walks those stairs, drawn back to the place they devoted their life to. Our final tale from San Mateo General comes from a nursing student who witnessed something truly chilling in the emergency room. Late one night, she saw a young boy in a red shirt and checkered shorts standing near a patient's bed. He seemed peaceful, almost serene. The next morning, she recounted her experience to her colleagues, only to discover that a child matching that exact description had passed away in that very room just hours earlier. The realization sent a wave of chills down her spine. It's as if the boy's spirit, still lingering, had come to say a final goodbye. These encounters blur the lines between life and death, offering a glimpse into a realm beyond our understanding. And in Filipino culture, children are often believed to have a heightened sensitivity to the supernatural, their innocence allowing them to perceive what adults cannot. From the hushed corridors of the hospital, we move to the bustling hallways of San Mateo High School, where youthful energy and ancient spirits collide. Imagine a typical classroom scene: students chatting, papers rustling, the teacher trying to maintain order. But on this particular day, something extraordinary happened. A student suddenly displayed unnatural strength, their voice morphing into something unrecognizable. It was as if they were possessed by an unseen force. The incident sent shockwaves through the school, with whispers of a vengeful spirit spreading like wildfire. It was said that the spirit, angered by the students' disrespect, had chosen this dramatic way to make its presence known. Years later, another student in that same classroom reported doors opening and closing on their own, sudden drops in temperature, and an oppressive atmosphere. It seemed the spirit's energy still lingered, a reminder to show respect, to acknowledge the unseen. Schools, with their mix of vibrant youth and historical significance, often become hotspots for paranormal activity. Could it be that the emotional intensity of these spaces, the echoes of laughter and tears, create a fertile ground for spiritual encounters? Our next story takes us to a high school retreat, a time for reflection and bonding. But for one of our listeners, it became a night of unexpected encounters. Late at night, while everyone else slept, she saw a nun walking slowly between the rows of beds. The nun's presence was both calming and eerie. She didn't seem to notice the students, lost in her own world, as if searching for something or someone. The next morning, she shared her experience, only to discover that other students had seen the nun as well. The retreat, meant to be a time of spiritual growth, became an unforgettable encounter with the unknown. The figure of the nun holds a powerful place in Filipino culture, a symbol of faith and devotion. Could her appearance be tied to the deep Catholic roots that have shaped our society? Or is it a manifestation of something more ancient, a connection to the spiritual guardians of the land? And now we enter the most personal space of all, the home. A place where we seek comfort and safety, but sometimes the spirits follow us home. Before we dive in, be sure to follow the Stories Philippines podcast and share it with your friends, family, and colleagues who crave thrilling tales. Our episodes are filled with suspense and excitement, guaranteed to keep you on the edge of your seat. Sharing our podcast not only helps us grow, but also spreads the joy of storytelling to others who appreciate a good thrill. Whether you're on a commute, working out, or unwinding at home, our stories are the perfect companion. And if you or someone you know has an amazing story to tell, we'd love to hear it. Your personal experiences and unique tales add immense value to our community. Reach out to us via the links in the show notes. We can't wait to hear from you and possibly feature your story in an upcoming episode. Thank you for joining our storytelling journey. Now, back to the show. One of our listeners shared a chilling experience that left her feeling vulnerable in her own bedroom. She awoke in the dead of night to find a lady dressed in black standing at the foot of her bed, staring intently at her. This terrifying encounter was just the beginning. She began experiencing recurring episodes of sleep paralysis, each time accompanied by the lady in black, watching her, looming over her. The feeling of being trapped, unable to move or scream, while a shadowy figure invaded her most private space, was utterly terrifying. It was as if the lady in black was a harbinger of these episodes, a dark entity that haunted her sleep. Now, sleep paralysis is a fascinating phenomenon, often blurring the line between dreams and reality. But when combined with our cultural beliefs, with the stories we've grown up hearing about supernatural beings that visit us in the night, it can become a truly terrifying experience. This listener's story reminds us that sometimes, our deepest fears take root in the shadows of our own minds, amplified by the whispers of our cultural heritage. Our next story takes us to a university dormitory where two cousins shared a room and a series of unsettling experiences. Every night, as the clock struck 3 a.m., they would be awakened by strange noises, scratching sounds, whispers, objects moving seemingly on their own. The disturbances became so frequent that they resorted to a traditional Filipino remedy, spreading salt around their room, creating a barrier against evil spirits. While the salt seemed to offer some protection, the eerie feeling persisted. It was as if something or someone was trying to communicate with them, using the witching hour to make its presence known. Though frightened, the cousins found comfort in knowing they weren't alone in their experiences, their bond strengthening in the face of the unknown. The use of salt as a protective measure is deeply ingrained in Filipino culture, a practice passed down through generations. It's believed to disrupt negative energy, creating a safe haven from malevolent spirits. This simple act connects us to our ancestors, to their wisdom and their understanding of the unseen world. Our final story tonight takes us to a family who moved into a newly built townhouse, unaware of the secrets hidden within its walls. Soon after settling in, they began experiencing a series of unsettling events, unexplained bruises, frequent falls, objects vanishing and reappearing in unexpected places. Sensing a supernatural presence, they sought the help of a faith healer, who revealed a startling truth: a black dwarf had been disturbed by the construction of their home. This mischievous entity, angered by the intrusion, was making its displeasure known. The faith healer performed a series of rituals to appease the black dwarf, offering respect and seeking forgiveness for the unintentional disturbance. Gradually, the disturbances subsided, and the family learned a valuable lesson. Even in the modern world, we must respect the unseen inhabitants of the land, acknowledging their presence and seeking harmony with the spiritual realm. The concept of dwarfs is deeply rooted in Filipino folklore. These elemental beings, guardians of nature, can bring both blessings and misfortune. Respecting them, acknowledging their presence, is crucial for maintaining balance in our lives and in our environment. As we reach the end of our journey tonight, let these stories linger in your mind. From hospitals to schools, from dormitories to homes, the supernatural world seems to intersect with our own in ways we may never fully understand. The Filipino concepts of pasma, the protective power of salt, the belief in entities like the duwende, these are all threads in the rich tapestry of our culture, shaping our understanding of the unseen. Listeners, these stories remind us to approach the world with respect, to acknowledge the unseen forces that may surround us. Whether you believe in spirits or not, The power of belief itself is undeniable, shaping our experiences and our interactions with the unknown. So the next time you hear a creak in the night or feel a sudden chill, remember these stories. Keep your minds open, your hearts brave, and always keep listening. And if you have a chilling tale of your own, a brush with the supernatural, we'd love to hear it. Share your experiences with us and help us explore the mysteries that lie hidden in the shadows. Don't forget to check the show notes for links to support our podcast. Your contributions help us continue bringing you these spine-tingling tales from the heart of the Philippines. Welcome, listeners, to another chilling episode of Stories Philippines podcast. I'm your host, Alex, and today we delve deep into the heart of Filipino folklore and the supernatural with a story sent by one of our brave listeners. This tale, set in the picturesque yet eerie locale of Malabon, intertwines ancient beliefs with modern-day experiences, leaving you questioning the boundaries between reality and the unseen. Before we begin, let's ponder a few questions. Have you ever felt an unseen presence watching you? A chill down your spine for no apparent reason? Perhaps you've heard a sound you couldn't explain, a whisper in the dead of night. Or maybe you've had a dream so vivid, it felt more real than reality itself. Tonight's story will resonate with those lingering questions, those moments that make you wonder if there's more to our world than meets the eye. Please note, to respect the privacy of those involved, the names and specific details have been changed. However, the essence of their experiences, the raw fear, and the lingering mystery remain untouched. Our story begins on a typical quiet night in Malabon, a place steeped in history and tradition. Maria, a young girl of about 12, was walking home from her evening class. The path she took was a narrow, dimly lit road, a shortcut that wound its way through the outskirts of town. The crickets chirped their nightly symphony, and the occasional rustling of leaves added to the atmosphere. It was one of those paths that seemed to stretch endlessly, with only a few flickering streetlights offering pools of illumination in the vast darkness. As Maria walked, a chill ran down her spine, a feeling that she was being watched. She quickened her pace, her heart pounding in her chest. Suddenly she heard it, a faint cry, soft at first, then growing louder, more desperate. It was the unmistakable cry of a baby, echoing through the stillness of the night. Who would leave a baby out here in the dark? Maria wondered, her curiosity battling with the fear that was quickly consuming her. She hesitated, torn between the urge to help and the primal fear that whispered warnings in her ear. This scenario, listeners, taps into one of our most instinctual fears, the cry of a helpless baby. It's a sound designed to trigger an immediate response, to pull at our heartstrings and compel us to act. In many cultures, including Filipino folklore, the cry of a baby in the night can be an ominous sign, often associated with supernatural beings using the sound to lure unsuspecting victims. The sound grew louder, more insistent. Maria, her heart pounding in her chest, decided to follow the cries. She hoped to find the baby, to offer help before any harm could come to it. The cries led her deeper into the shadows, away from the relative safety of the road and into the heart of the unknown. Maria's mother, Linda, had always warned her about the dangers of the night. The shadows are no friends of ours, she would say, brandishing a clove of garlic, its pungent aroma filling the air. In Filipino culture, garlic is believed to ward off evil spirits, a belief rooted in centuries of folklore and tradition. Linda, a firm believer in these traditions, never let Maria leave the house without a clove of garlic in her pocket, a small but potent shield against the unseen forces that lurked in the darkness. The use of garlic as protection against evil is not unique to Filipino culture. It has been used historically in various cultures across the globe, from Europe to Asia. Its strong odor was believed to repel not only physical threats like vampires, as depicted in Bram Stoker's Dracula, but also malicious entities that roam the spirit world. This widespread belief highlights the universal human need for protection against the unknown, the things that go bump in the night. As Maria ventured further into the darkness, the cries suddenly stopped. The silence was deafening, the sudden absence of the baby's cries more unsettling than the sound itself. She turned to retrace her steps, to find her way back to the road, but she realized with a growing sense of dread that she was lost. Panic set in, and she frantically rummaged through her pocket, her fingers closing around the smooth, familiar shape of the garlic her mother had given her. Clutching it tightly, she whispered a silent prayer, her breath catching in her throat. To her horror, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was a spectral woman, her form shimmering in the darkness. Her face was gaunt, her eyes hollow, seeming to pierce into Maria's very soul. The ghostly figure floated closer, her presence chilling the air around her. Maria's encounter here is reminiscent of the White Lady, a common figure in Filipino folklore. Often depicted as a vengeful spirit dressed in white, she is said to appear to those who stray into her domain, especially at night. Stories of the White Lady exist in various cultures, each with its own unique twist. In Latin America, there's La Llorona, a weeping woman who drowned her children and now wanders searching for them. In Irish mythology, the banshee wails to herald an impending death. These figures, though different in their origins, share a common thread: they are harbingers of sorrow and misfortune. "Stay back," Maria shouted, her voice trembling but filled with a newfound courage. She held the garlic high, her arms shaking. The ghost paused, its face contorted in a mix of anger and anguish. Maria's heart raced as she slowly backed away, her eyes darting around, trying to remember the path she had taken. The ghost let out a wail that echoed through the night, a sound that sent shivers down Maria's spine. Summoning every ounce of courage, she turned and ran as fast as she could, her feet pounding on the uneven ground. The ghost's cries pursued her, growing fainter with each step. Finally, Maria saw the dim glow of a streetlight in the distance. She burst into the open road, the familiar sight filling her with relief. She didn't stop running until she reached the safety of her home, her lungs burning, her legs aching. Breathless and trembling, she recounted her ordeal to her mother, who listened with a grave expression. Linda hugged Maria tightly. "You did well, Anak," she said, her voice soothing. "The spirit you encountered is known as the White Lady, a restless soul searching for her lost child. She preys on the vulnerable, but you were strong. You remembered what I taught you." Years passed and Maria grew up, but the memory of that night never faded. The family moved to a new home in Malabon, a quaint old house with a peculiar staircase. From the first day, Maria felt uneasy on those stairs. It was as if the shadows had a life of their own, stretching and twisting in the dim light. One night, while descending the stairs, Maria saw a shadowy figure at the bottom. It was tall and indistinct, just a mass of darkness that seemed to pulsate with malevolence. She froze, her heart pounding in her chest, the blood draining from her face. The figure didn't move, but its presence was overwhelming, suffocating. Maria blinked, and the shadow was gone. She shook her head, trying to convince herself it was just her imagination, a trick of the light. But the figure returned, appearing sporadically at the same spot, always watching, always waiting. This recurring shadow figure Maria sees is a phenomenon known in paranormal studies as a shadow person. These entities are often reported around the world, described as dark, featureless humanoid shapes that flicker at the edge of our vision. While some believe they are spirits or interdimensional beings, others attribute them to sleep paralysis or tricks of the mind. However, the sheer number of reports and the consistency of the descriptions make them a compelling subject for those interested in the paranormal. Maria couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong with the house. She decided to investigate its history and discovered that a previous owner, a young woman named Amara, had died tragically on those very stairs. Some said it was an accident, a fall in the darkness, but others whispered of foul play, of a life cut short by violence. Determined to find answers, Maria enlisted the help of her cousin, Juan, who was known to be sensitive to the supernatural. Together, they set up cameras and sensors around the house, hoping to capture any evidence of paranormal activity. One night, while reviewing the footage, Juan saw it, a shadow figure, just as Maria had described, standing at the bottom of the stairs. It was faint but unmistakable, a dark silhouette against the pale wall. The figure didn't move, just watched, its presence palpable even through the grainy footage. Juan felt a chill run down his spine. "There's definitely something here, Maria," he said. His voice hushed. "We need to find a way to help this spirit pass on." Linda, with her deep knowledge of Filipino folklore, suggested a ritual to cleanse the house and help the restless spirit find peace. They gathered salt, sage, and garlic, common items believed to have protective and purifying powers. With Juan leading the way, they began the ritual. Salt has been used for centuries in various cultures as a symbol of purity and protection. In Filipino traditions, it is often used in rituals to ward off evil spirits. Similarly, sage is burned in many cultures to purify spaces and banish negative energies, its fragrant smoke carrying prayers and intentions to the spirit world. They sprinkled salt around the house, the fine grains forming a protective barrier against unseen forces. The sage smoke curled and danced, filling the air with its cleansing aroma. Linda chanted prayers in a low, steady voice, calling on the spirits of their ancestors for protection and guidance. As they descended the stairs, the atmosphere grew heavy, the shadows seeming to lengthen and twist, as if aware of their presence. Maria held her breath, clutching a clove of garlic tightly in her hand. They reached the bottom of the stairs, the spot where the shadow figure had appeared time and time again. Linda placed her hand on Maria's shoulder, offering a reassuring squeeze. "Amara," Linda called out, her voice firm yet compassionate. "We know your story. We understand your pain. It's time for you to move on, to find peace." Before we continue into today's story, please follow Stories Philippines podcast and share it with your friends, family, and anyone who enjoys a good spine tingler. Our episodes are filled with suspense and excitement that will keep you enthralled. Sharing our podcast helps us grow and brings the joy of storytelling to a wider audience. Whether you're on a commute, at the gym, or unwinding at home, our stories are the perfect companion. Also, if you or someone you know has a fascinating story to share, we'd love to hear it. Your personal experiences and unique stories are what make our community special. Reach out to us via the links in the show notes. We can't wait to feature your story in a future episode. Thank you for being part of our storytelling adventure. Now, let's get back to the episode. The air grew colder, the shadows swirling around them like restless spirits. Maria felt a tear slide down her cheek, a sudden wave of sorrow washing over her. She felt a connection to Amara, a shared sense of pain and longing. The shadows seemed to pulse, then slowly began to dissipate, as if releasing their hold on the house, on the world. A soft whisper filled the air, barely audible, but Maria recognized it. A whispered thank you carrying the weight of years of sorrow and the lightness of newfound peace. The atmosphere lightened, the oppressive energy lifting like a fog. Maria and her family felt a sense of relief, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from their shoulders, from the very walls of their home. It's fascinating how many cultures have rituals and practices for communicating with and appeasing spirits. From the Dia de los Muertos in Mexico, where families gather to celebrate and remember their deceased loved ones, to the Qingming Festival in China, where ancestors are honored with offerings and visits to their graves. The belief in honoring and guiding the dead is a common thread that connects us all. These rituals offer comfort and closure, a way to bridge the gap between the living and the departed. From that day forward, the house felt different. The shadows no longer held their menacing presence, and the eerie feeling on the stairs was gone. Maria felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that they had helped a lost soul find her way to the other side. The experience strengthened their bond as a family, deepening their understanding and respect for the spiritual world. Maria continued to share her story, hoping to help others who might be facing similar experiences, to offer a beacon of hope in the face of the unknown. Years later, Maria received an email from a friend, Ella, who had moved into a new condo in Manila. Ella was unsettled by a photo she had taken in her new home. In the background, a faint figure could be seen, almost transparent, standing by the window. Ella, though skeptical of the supernatural, couldn't shake off the unease the photo caused. She asked for Maria's opinion, hoping for a rational explanation. Maria examined the photo closely and felt a familiar chill. The figure, though indistinct, seemed to carry the same oppressive energy she had experienced in her old home. Ella recounted strange occurrences in the condo, doors opening and closing on their own, cold spots in certain rooms, and the unsettling feeling of being watched. Remembering her own experiences, Maria advised Ella to perform a cleansing ritual to clear the energy of the space and find peace. It's worth noting that many historic places, including hotels and old buildings, have reports of similar ghostly sightings. For instance, the Manila Film Center, a building shrouded in tragedy, is said to be haunted by the spirits of workers who died during its construction. The tragedy, which occurred in the early 1980s, saw numerous construction workers buried alive in quick-drying cement. The incident, hushed up by the Marcos regime, left a dark stain on the building's history and fueled countless tales of hauntings and paranormal activity. Maria joined Ella at the condo, bringing along the same items her mother had used: salt, sage, and garlic. Together, they performed the ritual, sprinkling salt in every corner and burning sage, its fragrant smoke filling the space. They called on protective spirits, their voices echoing in the quiet condo. As they completed the ritual, Ella felt a shift in the atmosphere. A warmth spread through the condo, replacing the previous chill. The unsettling feeling lifted, replaced by a sense of calm. When they re-examined the photo, the figure was gone, vanished without a trace. Ella thanked Maria, relieved to have her home feel safe and welcoming again. Maria's experiences didn't end there. She began having vivid dreams involving water, a powerful symbol of deep emotions, transitions, and the subconscious. In these dreams, she often saw a young man, sometimes appearing as Jesus, guiding her through turbulent waters, his presence a source of comfort and strength. These dreams occurred during significant life changes, offering her guidance and reassurance. Maria realized that the young man represented her inner strength and resilience, helping her navigate through life's challenges. Water in dreams often symbolizes the flow of life and the depths of our emotions. In many dream interpretations, clear water represents clarity and calm, while murky water signifies confusion and uncertainty. Maria's recurring water dreams could be her mind's way of processing her emotional states, of finding peace and clarity amidst life's ups and downs. Listeners, as we come to the end of this chilling journey, let's reflect on the lessons learned. The stories we've shared today remind us of the thin veil between our world and the spiritual realm, the unseen forces that shape our lives in ways we may never fully understand. They teach us the importance of respecting traditions, the power of belief, and the strength we can find in our cultural heritage. They also highlight our innate need to make sense of the unknown, to seek comfort and understanding in the face of fear. Whether through rituals, dreams, or shared stories, we find ways to connect with something greater than ourselves, to find meaning in the mysteries that surround us. So, the next time you hear a whispered cry in the night, or see a shadow flicker at the edge of your vision, remember these tales. Embrace your curiosity, seek understanding, and know that you are not alone in your journey through the mysteries of life. We hope this deep dive into Filipino folklore and the supernatural has sparked your own curiosity and encouraged you to look a little deeper, question what lies beyond the surface, and maybe even explore those late-night whispers of your own subconscious. The most compelling mysteries are not always hiding in the shadows. Sometimes they are found in the space where our imaginations meet reality. If you have a story to share, we would love to hear it. Your experiences are what make this podcast vibrant and engaging. Please submit your stories to us for future episodes. You can find details on how to contribute in the show notes. To keep bringing you more fantastic episodes like this, we need your support. Check the links in the show notes to find out how you can support us financially. Whether it's through donations or subscribing to our premium content, every bit helps us continue creating these wonderful episodes for you. Thank you for joining us on Stories Philippines podcast. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and keep sharing your stories.